Everyone. Good morning, everyone online. It's good to see you. So today, I want to take us back to some early Buddhist teachings. And I have my you all see this? Can you guys see it online? Somebody give me a thumbs up. All right. This is an image of the 12-fold chain of causation. So have some of you, I think, have probably heard about this. Yes. If you have, raise your hand. All right. So I love these images because they're very graphic, and we could go through each of the stages, and all the symbolism. This is Yama, this is death, fierceness. You can see the Dharma wheel on his feet, or their feet. And there's various animals and bodhisattvas and all kinds of things going on here. So if you have a chance, this is in the back, the front side, the back side. So this is why this matters to us. This is a fundamental teaching about the way our minds and hearts work, and about suffering and liberation. But I want to start with a description about how this actually works, because we can sometimes get carried away and think that we're in charge of everything, and that somehow if we just work hard enough, it'll all be perfect the way we want it to be. So this is the parable of the farmer, and it points directly to how we live out our practice and our effort. So the farmer, the vintner, the whatever, one who's growing things in the earth, energetically plows and harrows the field, energetically prepares the soil, right? Somehow takes care of the soil. If that has to do with planting certain plants that are then dug back into the soil or whatever, we care for the soil. We prepare the soil, and then we energetically plant the seeds. What is it that we want to grow? Or we care for the plants that are already there. So we put our effort and energy into preparing the soil and planting the seeds. And then we energetically water or care for or feed or whatever. We take care of what it is we intend to grow. But we do not have a magical power to make the plants grow. We can't speed the process by standing over the plants and tell them to grow, right? This is not the way it works. Our effort is to set the causes and conditions, do what we can to set up a situation in which these plants will grow, and then trust that in each moment of our day, there is growth that's possible. We don't control that. We're in relationship with the weather, with the soil, with all of that. I just saw this article about how they're starting to make wine now in amphoras, those big clay things, those big clay vessels that they used in Roman times, because climate change is changing the way, the, the conditions under which grapes grow in many parts of Europe, and other parts of the world too, here too. And so what's happening is, as climate change happens, the grapes, it's hotter, summer's longer, the grapes grow more intensely, higher sugar content, higher alcohol content, thicker skins, which makes for a stronger, more potent wine. And not everybody wants that. So what they've done is gone back to certain early grapes that were grown in Roman times, native grapes from this area. Anyway, there's a long story here about phylloxera and how it killed the grapes, and in Asia, in Europe, and how they had to, the grapes plants had come to this country, and then phylloxera killed all the grapes in Europe, so they had to come to this country and get the grapes plants to take back to, anyway, it's very interesting to me. But the point is, they went back to a way of making wine based on earlier, more responsive methods, and they're coming up with a whole new way to do it. So we are in relationship with this environment. We don't dictate. However, our effort is considered and deep. So we do what we can. And in the early Buddhist teachings, the Theravada teachings, there is this teaching of the 12-fold chain. It's very sequential, very steps and stages, very different from most usual Zen teachings, but not separate from it. We can learn a lot from this teaching, and how it describes how our minds and hearts work, and how to engage with our practice in a way that supports the growth of wisdom and compassion for ourselves and others. So these are called the nidanas, each of the ones on this. And it's a way to describe the habits of our mind and heart, and how they reproduce themselves and reproduce suffering. So traditionally, this is talked about over lifetimes, but like how things happen from one lifetime to the next. But we can think about this, about our lives as they are now. What happens? How do we reproduce ourselves and our habits moment to moment, day to day? Okay. So there's variations to this basic model. In a way, it's more of a web than a chain. It's very difficult to separate one link from another sometimes. And there are places where change can occur. So I'm just going to go through these briefly. You with me? Yeah. Okay. The first one is ignorance. Specifically, ignorance about the nature of the world. Ignorance about the Four Noble Truths, that there is suffering, that there is a cause of suffering, that there is an end to suffering, and that end is the Eightfold Path. But fundamentally, we can think about this ignorance as ignorance about the way things are. That we don't see impermanence, that we don't see interconnection, that we think of ourselves as separate human beings. With that as a foundation, we have what are called dispositions, constructing activities. So based in this ignorance, we tend to respond and see in certain ways. We have tendencies. We orient or are disposed in ways that in turn condition consciousness. Okay? This is this next chain, what can be called discriminating consciousness. That's a little tricky term, but just think of it as consciousness. We actually see things or don't see things based on the shape of our minds and our dispositions. If we're looking for certain things, our minds will automatically notice those things. For example, if we are thinking we might want a dog, we see dogs everywhere, right? Have you ever noticed this? You need a new car, so you start looking at cars everywhere. You see cars everywhere. But it is often not so innocuous. So we see what we want to see and we ignore the rest. We make loops, they'll have like a capital R and they'll just miss part of it, but you fill in the blank and see an R. We see what we expect to see, and we build a world in this way. Our consciousness depends, our lived consciousness, what we experience, depends on volitions and tendencies. If we have a strong intention to wake up, this deeply informs our ability to see clearly and respond from that with care. So I've told this story before, but one time I met a person and I just kind of didn't like them. And I thought, what's that about? I don't even know this person. And then I noticed that their mouth was very much like a mouth of somebody who'd been very mean to me once. And once I noticed that, it went away, right? Because I could see that my mind was constructing something that had nothing to do with this person in front of me. And so I was freed from it. And I could actually wonder about this person. This happens all the time. I know I told you the gorilla example. Do you remember the gorilla example? Anybody? Okay, so there was a television program once on documentary about attention and consciousness. And so what they did was they showed a video to people about two groups of people who were passing a ball back between one another. And the people who were watching the video, their job was to count the number of times this team or that team had the ball. That was it. So then after this video was over, the researcher asked the people who were watching it, did you notice anything else? And only one person said they had. The other group, there was about maybe 15 people, and it said, no, we didn't notice anything else. So then he replayed it and said, just pay attention. When they paid attention, they saw that in the background, there was a large man in a gorilla suit walking behind. It was clearly visible. He was walking behind the people passing the ball back and forth. And they didn't see it because they weren't looking for it, right? So then you're sitting there thinking, well, I would have been the one person that had seen this, right? Then at the end of the program, and they'd had different things about people carrying boards and various things. At the end of the program, they said, oh, by the way, did you notice? And they showed different scenes from the program that you just watched where there was a gorilla in the background. And I never saw it, right? So this is what we do. Our minds naturally focus, and what we focus on and the way we construct reality is based on the conditions of our minds and hearts. So based on this, the next link in the chain is called name and form, namaripa. So as a result of our discriminative habits, we actually make the world of name and form. We see things in certain categories of existence. Our world takes shape. So this is completely tied in with the six sense fields. So hearing, taste, touch, feel, thinking. So 4 and 5 go together really like hand in glove. And this is based on contact, sensory stimulation. So we have the capacity, most of us, to hear, even if it starts to go a little bit, to see, to taste. There's the capacity, there's an object, and then there's the interaction. Based on all of this, feelings arise. Now, these are not emotions. These are just positive, negative, and neutral responses. Very rudimentary. Now, all of this leads to craving, desire. And I don't mean like wholesome desire. I mean, based on the feeling we have a thirst. We have a belief in what will satisfy that thirst, that craving. We believe, based on our delusions, what we think will work. So what's interesting, one of the things that's interesting about this is that the first steps kind of go like this, right? That all happens so fast, we don't even notice it. So ignorance, dispositions, discriminative consciousness, name and form, sense feels, contact, feeling, they're all like boom, 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 boom. Unless you do really, really, really intensive meditation, you do not see this happens before you even know it, right? Because we live in this world, we make constructions, it's what we do. So I want you to pay particular attention to craving and desire, because we can spot that. And we can throw a monkey wrench in this. From craving comes grasping, appropriation, clinging. So we have this feeling of what's going to satisfy us, and we want it. We want it, right? So if we keep moving around this chain, based on this, we crave, we appropriate, we want, and we hold on for dear life. And then the next chain is becoming or existence. What we hold on to becomes the shape of our life. It dominates, it defines us, what we are, what our life is. It reproduces itself in our life. So who we are becomes again and again and again. That's the next chain, which is birth or rebirth. We have the life and the values that we live out through this process. We're reborn over and over again. And then we have aging and dying. Everything that is born dies. Everything passes. And so there is a possibility, there's a gap here. There's certain places where you can throw a spanner in the works, as they say. At craving, you can see. At appropriation and grasping, at construction, you can see. You can see the way you become again and again and again. And you can see, I don't want this. I don't want to suffer. I don't want others to suffer. So you pay attention to this model, and you develop intention, something that can put a spanner in the works and keep this from rolling on and on and on until you die. Yeah. this is a way when we develop our intention to wake up, it can infuse this, right? Do you see this in your life? Yeah. You make an intention to go home for a holiday to your family home, if you have one. And Uncle Joe shows up, who makes you nuts. Or all of a sudden, you're treated like you're 7 years old again, even though you're 50. And there's a force field that happens that can just bend you into another realm. Or you go to work, or you go wherever, and you can feel yourself being pulled into a certain shape, and you say, no, I'm not going to do that this time. And so you respond differently. You have an intention. Something else arises, and you change. You actually change. And then a different wheel moves on. It's very positive. This is a very positive teaching. And one of the fundamental ways we do this is we sit in meditation. So we see our minds working. It can be, as my friend Fu Schrader says, like turning a garbage disposal on backwards. Yeah. So you see, oh no, not that. Or you see somebody else and you say, I want that suffering. I don't want this one. Or why can't I be this idealized self that I want? But I'm not. I'm a human being with tendencies and habits and perceptions and lots of stuff. I get angry, or I get frightened, or I get greedy, or I go to sleep, or I get judgmental, or you name it, right? But when we can see it, when we have an intention to wake up, then that's liberation. So there's another sequence that I want to share with you today. That's kind of companion to your mirror of the 12-fold chain of causation of suffering. It starts in the same place, and it's called the 12-fold chain of liberation. So there's another list here, but I want to start with two things that are not named on the list that I think are important. The first one is courage, because it takes courage to turn towards our lives instead of fleeing. Turn towards and say, yeah, oh, and say I'm sorry, or I need to wake up more, or I see the habits in my mind that are problematic, even if I hold them in, another thought, another feeling. It takes courage, a lot courage sometimes. So courage is important. And it also takes good friends on the path. They sustain and encourage us, don't you think? Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to take a few liberties with this other traditional Theravada description. If you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to do so. So the stages, steps, aspects of this model are, number one, delusion and suffering. Okay, that's where we start. So in this first step, we must slow down long enough to see the ways in which we suffer. Because we can be like, we get close to a hot stove and we flee, right? And sometimes that's fine. We shouldn't this is not about keeping our nose to the grindstone. This is about establishing a way in which we can honestly and kindly and sincerely see what we're up to and the problems it causes for ourselves and others. Clearly, directly, with stability, with humility, with courage, with kindness. That's where we start. Without kindness, honesty is important, is impossible. We can't do it. When we do this, when we address our lives through practice in this way, we gain confidence, which is the second aspect. We gain confidence in the path, we gain confidence in our capacity to see what's going on in our lives. This is the confidence of a farmer, right? The farmer knows they can't control everything, but they can grow in their capacity to take care of the earth, to plant what works, to see to what's needed. So we grow in a sense of confidence and a responsibility. The third one is delight. So there's delight in knowing that there is a path, that we're not hopelessly lost, that we have a job to do, and we can do it. It's an easing in what we think reality is. The fourth one is joy. So a sense of deep engagement in our life and in our practice and in this way, it gives us the ability to appreciate what's in front of us. It gives us the ability to actually engage with our lives and appreciate what we're given in each moment. There's joy in that. And there's also the fifth quality, which is tranquility. Tranquility is a sense that we have a resting place. We have a foundation in this reality. It's also a sense of satisfaction that we can do this for the sake of ourselves and others. That brings the sixth, which is happiness. This is not happy, 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 right? This is, that sense of happiness. Yeah, it's simple, steady, not tied to a particular outcome. Not like I'm happy because I got that, but a sense of being alive. The seventh is concentration. So when I can see what is, and I have the capacity to be steady and engaged, I can focus on what matters. I'm not scattered. I'm not jumping from one thing to the next. I can pay attention. Yeah. The eighth is based on this. We can see things as they are. This is a deep seeing of the true nature of reality, not being caught by our inclinations, pulled around by our habits. like they put a ring through nose, tender nose. It's not like that. We may still have a ring in our nose, but we're not led around by it. We're not habituated to responding to the latest inclination. We actually know what we want in this life. So, a light bulb goes off sometimes, an old grudge fades away. We see impermanence, interdependence. We see deeply the humanness of the person that's in front of us, the being that's in front of us. This means this other element is number 9, which is called disenchantment. I think what this means is not disenchantment like, oh, this is awful, but we're not enchanted by by the fairy tales our minds come up with. We're not pulled around. We're able to see what's true. We're able to not be pulled around by what binds us, our latest goofy ideas. And number 10 is dispassion. So again, this doesn't mean we put a manhole cover over our emotions or our feelings. Not at all. This liberates our emotions and feelings. It liberates them. It liberates them in the way that it's not like overheated or bouncing from one thing to the next. It's like, oh, I'm stable enough. Any of these emotions can arise, and I'm not pulled around by them. I can feel love, I can feel fear, I can feel anger, I can feel all these things. Because we're human, we will have these emotional responses. We will have, but passion means I'm attached to that. I'm driven by it. Yeah. So it's not that we don't care. It's that we're grounded and not bound. And this all is liberation. Moments of liberation when clinging and enchantment and all of this, they don't trap us. We're not bound. We're alive in that moment. We can give fully without abandoning ourselves. We can know our interdependence with life. And this is the 12th, which is knowledge. Knowledge in our bones about what's true. Knowledge of who we are, of who all beings are. So I encourage you to consider these things and never forget the parable of the farmer, because it's easy to think, oh, if I get this right, if I just do this, I can control what's going on in my life, which is the opposite of what actually brings life to your life. Okay.